Hey there everyone, Ramesh here, back again with another video. In this video we are going to discuss few important Java string interview questions. Well, it doesn't matter whether you are a fresher or experienced candidate, you will definitely get questions on Java string in the interviews. And in this video we are going to discuss few frequently asked interview questions on Java string handling. Alright, so if you are a fresher, then definitely you will get a very basic question, that is, what is string in Java? Well, try to describe about string in Java. Just provide a few important points about string in Java. Okay, so here is the answer. String is a sequence of characters. In Java, strings are objects and string is basically immutable. So once you create a string object, you cannot change its content later. Okay, so string is a immutable. So once you create a string object, you cannot change it later. Alright, and from Java API point of view, string is a Java class which is defined in java.lang package, and string is not a primitive data type such as int, char, long, etc. Okay, so string is a class in Java which is defined in java.lang package. And if you can see here, this is a class diagram of string class, and just remember this class diagram, okay, because string class implements various interfaces like comparable, char sequence and serializable. So you may get a question like, what are the interfaces string class implements? So you can just memorize this class diagram and you can answer like, string class implements comparable, char sequence and serializable interfaces. Okay, great. So next question is, what are the different ways to create a string object? Well, basically there are two ways to create a string object. First way is by using string literal. Second way is by using new keyword. Well, using string literal is straightforward. You can just use double quote to create object of the string. And whenever you create a string object using string literal, then these string objects will be stored in string constant pool. Okay, so string constant pool is nothing but a special memory in the heap area. And whatever the object that you create using string literal, those objects will be stored in a string constant pool. So second way is using new keyword. So in Java generally we use a new keyword to create object of any classes, right? So similar to that, using new keyword we can create object of the string class like this. Okay, so basically there are two ways to create a string object. First way is using string literal, second way is using new keyword. And if you have pen and paper in your hand in interviews, make sure that you will just write examples and explain them. Okay, explain to the interviewer so that interviewer will be impressed to your answers. Okay, be practical. Always try to give examples. Well, next question is, what do you mean by mutable and immutable objects? Well, in the first question, that is what is string in Java, you have included string is a immutable, right? Hence you may get a cross question like, what do you mean by mutable and immutable objects? Well, here is the answer. Immutable objects are like constants. So once you create a immutable objects, you cannot change it later. Okay, and whereas mutable objects are changeable. So once you create a mutable objects, you can perform modification or update operation on it. Okay, for example, string is a immutable in Java. So once you create string object, then you can't modify it, right? You can't change it. But even though you try to modify it, JVM will create a new object. Okay, it will keep the existing one and it will create a new one. All right. Whereas StringBuilder or StringBuffer is a mutable in Java. So once you create an object of StringBuilder or StringBuffer class, then you can perform modification operation on them. Alright, so just remember, immutable objects are not changeable. So once you create a immutable object, you cannot change it later. But mutable objects are changeable. So once you create a mutable object, you can perform update operation or modification operation on that. Right? Great. The next question is, what is string constant pool? Well, this is one of the frequently asked question. Okay, So string constant pool is a memory space in a heap memory specially allocated to store string objects created using string literal. Well, here you can see the diagram. Stack memory, heap memory. Well, in a stack memory all the reference variables are stored, and in a heap memory all the real objects are stored. And in a heap memory you can see string constant pool. Well, string constant pool is nothing but a special memory in the heap memory. All the string objects that are created using string literal are stored in a string constant pool. Okay, so by looking into this diagram we can understand that string constant pool is a special memory allocated in the heap memory, and all the string objects that are created using string literals are stored inside string constant pool. Okay, and in string constant pool there will be no two string objects having the same content. For example, look at here, string s1 equal to hello world, string s2 equal to hello world. So both of these objects are created using string literal. So whenever you create s1 string object, then hello world will be stored in a string constant pool. If you try to create string object with the same content hello world, then JVM will first check whether the hello world is exist in the string constant pool or not. If it is already exist, then JVM will basically point the reference to the hello world and it will return that reference. It won't store the same content again in the string constant pool. Alright, I hope you got the idea. Alright, so string constant pool basically contains a unique string objects. And look at here one more example, string s4 equal to new string. Well, here we have created a string object using new keyword. So whenever you create an object of class using new keyword, then that object will be stored inside a heap memory, right? So here you can see s4 is the reference variable which is pointing to greetings object, and greetings object is stored inside a heap memory, not in a string constant pool, right? So basically string objects are stored in a special memory area known as string constant pool. Alright, great. Next question is, does string is a thread shape in Java? Well, in order to answer this question, you should know what is thread shape first, right? So thread shape is nothing but if multiple threads are trying to access the method of the object at the same time, then there should not be any issue with that object. Then that object is treated as a thread shape, right? So thread shape is nothing but if multiple threads are trying to access the method of that object, and if there is no issue with that object, then that is called a thread shape object. Okay, so does string is a thread shape in Java? Yes, because strings are immutable in Java. It means strings are like a constant. So once you create string object, you cannot change its content later, right? Even though you try to modify or you try to change that object, then JVM will create a new object of that string. So strings are immutable or like a constant, hence it's a thread shape and can be safely used in a multi-threaded environment, right? So remember, strings are immutable or like a constant, so you can obviously use strings in a multi-threaded environment. Okay. Next question is difference between equal to operator and equals method in Java. Well, this is one of the common question that interview question that you will get in interviews. Okay, so in general both equals method and equal to operator in Java are used to compare objects to check equality, but there are some significant differences between them. Well, the main difference between equals method and equal to operator is that equals method is a method and equal to is an operator. Okay, and important difference between equals method and equal to operator is that we can use equal to operator for reference comparison and equals method for content comparison. Okay, it means that you can use equal to operator to check if both objects point to the same memory location, whereas equals method you can use to check whether both objects content is the same or not. Alright, so again try to explain this with an example. So here you can see here s1 equal to new hello world, s2 equal to new hello world. So here I have created an object of s1 and s2 using new keyword, and both objects are stored in a heap memory in different memory locations. And here I have just checked the condition. Here I have used equal to operator. Well, both the objects are stored in different memory locations. That's why s1 equal to s2 returns a false. And content of the both objects s1 and s2 is same, that is hello hello. That's why equals of method returns true. Alright, so it means that you can use equal to operator to check whether the both objects are pointing to the same memory location. Okay, and if you want to check whether both objects content is same or not, then you can use equals method, right? And here I have created string objects using new keyword, but if you try to create these string objects using string literal, then you can see that s1 and s2 both objects should point to the same object in the string constant pool. In that case, both the references are pointing to the same memory location, hence you will get s1 equal to s2 as a true. Okay, great. So whenever you try give answer to this question, try to write some piece of code in the paper and try to explain to the interviewer what is exact difference between equal to operator and equals method. Okay, so equal to operator is used to check the references, that is address comparison, and equals method for content comparison. Alright, so next question is difference between string and string builder. Well, this is again one of the frequently asked question. Okay, so string is a immutable in Java, while string builder is a mutable in Java. It means that once we create a string object, we cannot change it later. But once we create object of the string builder class, then we can perform modification or we can change it later. That's why string builder is mutable in Java. Second difference is string is thread safe, whereas string builder is not a thread safe. It means that multiple threads can be able to access the method of the string object at the same time, whereas multiple threads cannot be access the method of the string builder object at the same time. It means that you can use a string in a multi-threaded environment safely, whereas string builder is not a thread safe, so you cannot use string builder in a multi-threaded environment. Well, the next difference is the performance of the string is slower than string builder in case of multiple concatenation operations. So this is because string is immutable in Java and concatenation of two string objects involves creating a new object, right? So as we know, string is immutable in Java, so whenever we create object of the string class, we cannot change it later. But if we try to change, then JVM will create a new object, right? That's why if we do multiple concatenation operation using string, with respect to performance, it is costly. So whenever you have multiple concatenation operation, then try to use string builder. Okay, great. So next difference could be string class overrides equals method of object class. So you can compare the content of two strings by using equals method, whereas string builder class cannot override the equals method of object class. Okay, so this is just one more significant difference between string class and string builder class. So in a string, you can use equals method to compare the content of the two strings, whereas string builder class cannot override equals method of the object class. So you cannot compare two string builder objects using equals method, right? So these are the few important differences between string and string builder. Well, the next question is difference between string and StringBuffer. Well, string is immutable, whereas StringBuffer class is mutable. So StringBuffer is almost same as string builder, but the difference is StringBuffer is basically a thread safe. Okay, you can use StringBuffer in multi-threaded environment. Okay, and all the methods in StringBuffer are synchronized. Hence, you can use StringBuffer in a multi-threaded environment. Okay, so string class is basically immutable, whereas StringBuffer class is mutable. It means that once you create a object of the string class, you cannot change it later. But whereas once you create object of StringBuffer class, you can change it later. That means StringBuffer is mutable. Okay, so next difference is string is slow, and consumes more memory when you perform too many concatenation string operations, because every time it creates a new instance, right? So as we know, string is immutable, and whenever we create object of the string, we cannot change it later, but we try to update, or if you try to modify the string object, then JVM will create a new instance, right? On the other hand, StringBuffer is a fast and consumes less memory when you concatenate multiple strings. Okay, great. So one more significant difference is string class overrides the equals method of the object class. So you can compare the contents of two strings by using equals method, whereas StringBuffer class does not override equals method of object class. So one more significant difference is string class uses string constant full to store objects, whereas StringBuffer class uses heap memory to store its objects. Well, when we create a string object using string literal, then that object will be stored in a string constant full, right? So in a StringBuffer, we don't have string literal concept. So whenever we create a string buffer object, we should use a new keyword, right? That means whenever you create object of the StringBuffer class, that should be stored in a heap memory. Okay, so this is one of the significant difference. Like whenever you create a string object using string literal, that will be stored in a string constant full, and whenever you create a string object using StringBuffer, then that would be stored in a heap memory. Alright, great. Well, the next question is difference between StringBuilder and StringBuffer classes. Well, I don't see much difference between these two classes. Alright, because StringBuilder and StringBuffer classes both are mutable. It means that whenever we create an object of these classes, we can perform modification operation on them, right? And here are the few significant differences. Like StringBuilder is not a thread shape, whereas StringBuffer is a thread shape. It means that multiple threads can able to access the method of the StringBuffer object at the same time. Okay, that's the reason StringBuffer is a thread shape, and you can safely use StringBuffer in a multi-threaded environment. Alright, and you can see all the methods in StringBuffer are synchronized. That means StringBuffer is a thread shape, and you can use StringBuffer in a multi-threaded environment. Next is StringBuffer is slower than StringBuilder, because StringBuffer is a thread shape implementation, therefore StringBuffer is slower than StringBuilder. So whenever you have concatenation operation, then go ahead and use StringBuilder because it performs good, whereas StringBuffer a bit slower, because all the methods in StringBuffer are synchronized. So and it provides thread safety. That's the reason StringBuffer is a little bit slower than StringBuilder. Alright, next question is which one you will prefer among equal to operator and equals method to compare two string objects. Well, this question is almost similar to difference between equal to operator and equals method. So interviewer will just ask question like this just to check your knowledge on equal to operator and equals method. So whenever you will get question like this, then you can answer like, yes, I use equals method to compare two string objects, right? And also give a difference between equal to operator and equals. Well, the next question is what does the string intern method do? Well, intern method is pretty interesting. Okay, so intern method creates exact copy of the string object in the heap memory and stores it in the string constant full. Well, whenever you create a string object using new keyword, that object will be stored in a heap memory, and if you want to store that object again in the string constant full, then you can use intern method. Well, here you can see the code snippet. This code snippet demonstrates how you can use intern method. Well, here I have created object s1 using string literal and s2 object using new keyword. Okay, and here you can see the statement string s5 equal to s2 dot intern. So here s2 is created using new keyword. I want to move this object from heap memory to string constant full. In that case, I can use intern method over here. So whenever we create a string object using new keyword, then that object will be stored in a heap memory, right? And if you want to move that string object from heap memory to string constant full, then you can use intern method. So if you can see here this line of code s2 dot intern. So this s2 object will be stored in the string constant pool, and you can see this statement s1 equal to s5. So the content of both the objects are same, abc abc. It means that whenever you use intern method, it should be stored in the string constant pool, and if this same object is already exist in the string constant pool, then JVM will basically return the reference. It won't again store the same content in the string constant pool. That's the reason here we are just checking both the references are pointing to the same object or not using equals operator. s1 equal to s5. Okay, so s5 here means s2 dot intern. So s2 object is created using new keyword, and we are using intern method to move this object from heap memory to string constant pool, and s1 is already there in a string constant pool. So if we compare s1 equal to s5, then the result should be true, because both s1 and s5 references are pointing to the same object, that is abc. Okay, so just remember what is the use of intern method. Alright, the next question is, why string is popular hashmap key in Java? Well, as we know that string is a immutable, so its hash code is calculated at the time of creation, and it does not need to calculate again, because string is immutable like a constant. So once we create a hash code for the string object, it remains same, so we don't need to create or calculate again and again, right? So this makes it great candidate for key in a map, and its processing is quite faster than other hashmap key objects. So this is why string is mostly used object as a hashmap keys. Alright, so next question is, how many objects will be created in a following code and where they will be stored? So interviewer maybe will provide some piece of code, and he will say like how many objects will created for this code and where exactly they will stored. Well, if you can see the first line here, string object is created using new keyword. It means that this object will be stored in a heap memory. And second statement, the string object is created using string literal. It means that the string object will be stored in a string constant pool, right? And both objects are created separately, because both the objects are stored in different memory spaces. So first object will be stored in heap memory, second object stored in a string constant pool. That's the reason two string objects will be created, and s1 object will be stored in a heap memory and s2 object will be stored in a string constant pool. So you may get another question like for example, here you can see interviewer will provide this line of code, and he will say like how many objects are created for these 3 lines of code. So here you can see s1 equal to hello world, s2 equal to hello world, s5 equal to hello world. It means that here we are creating string objects using string literal. It means all these objects are stored in a string constant pool, and JVM will check whether a same object is existing in a string constant pool or not. If it is already exist, then it will simply point this reference to that object. Alright, it means that only one object will be created for these 3 lines of code. Okay, so JVM will take care of storing the objects in the string constant pool. It won't store duplicate string objects. Alright, so just remember, whenever you create a string object using string literal, then that object will be stored in string constant pool, and you cannot store multiple string objects with the same content. Alright, if you try to store multiple objects with the same content, then JVM will basically return the reference. It won't store the same content again in the string constant pool. Alright, great. So these are the 14 commonly asked questions on Java string handling in the interviews. Alright, so this is the blog post that I have written and published on my blog website. So I will provide a link of this blog post in the video description so that you can take this blog post for your reference. Alright, thanks for watching guys. Let me know if you want this kind of videos. I will create and I will publish for you guys. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.